Because the committee tied its asset purchases to the outlook for the labor market, it's important to assess how that outlook has evolved. As I noted earlier, conditions in the job market today are still far from what all of us would like to see. Nevertheless, meaningful progress has been made in the year since we announced the asset purchase program. For example, the unemployment rate has fallen from 8.1% at the time of our announcement to 7.3% today, and about 2.3 million private sector jobs have been created over the same period. Over the past 12 months, aggregate hours of work are up by about 2.4%. Weekly new claims for unemployment insurance have fallen by about 50,000, and surveys suggest that households perceive jobs as more readily available. Importantly, these gains were achieved despite substantial fiscal headwinds, which are likely slowing economic growth this year by a percentage point or more and reducing employment by hundreds of thousands of jobs. Not all labor market developments over the past year were positive, however. Notably, the labor force participation rate fell by about 0.3 percentage points, and real wages remained about flat. In light of this cumulative progress, the FOMC concluded at our June meeting that the criterion of substantial improvement in the outlook for the labor market might well be met over the subsequent year or so. Accordingly, the committee sought to provide more guidance on how the pace of purchases might be adjusted over time. The committee anticipated in June that, subject to certain conditions, it might be appropriate to begin to moderate the pace of purchases later this year, continuing to reduce the pace of purchases in measured steps through the first half of next year and ending purchases around mid-year 2014. However, we also made clear at that time that adjustments to the pace of purchases would depend importantly on the evolution of the economic outlook, in particular on the receipt of evidence supporting the committee's expectation that gains in the labor market will be sustained and that inflation is moving back towards its 2% objective over time. At the meeting concluded earlier today, the sense of the committee was that the broad contours of the medium-term economic outlook, including economic growth sufficient to support ongoing gains in the labor market and inflation moving towards its objective, were close to the views it held in June. But in evaluating whether a modest reduction in the pace of asset purchases would be appropriate at this meeting, however, the committee concluded that the economic data do not yet provide sufficient confirmation of its baseline outlook to warrant such a reduction. Moreover, the committee has some concern that the rapid tightening of financial conditions in recent months could have the effect of slowing growth, as I noted earlier, a concern that would be exacerbated if conditions tightened further. Finally, the extent of the effects of restrictive fiscal policies remain unclear, and upcoming fiscal debates may involve additional risks to financial markets and to the broader economy. In light of these uncertainties, the committee decided to await more evidence that the recovery's progress will be sustained before adjusting the pace of asset purchases.